My phone vibrated against the kitchen island at exactly 9:12 a.m. I reached for it, assuming it was a confirmation number from the rental company or a question about the final guest count. Instead, the screen displayed a message from my mother, Catherine. "Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding." I froze. I didn't even blink. I just stared at the words, willing them to rearrange into a bad joke. But then, a second notification bloomed on the screen. Olivia liked this message. My sister, the bride, the very person whose fantasy wedding I had painstakingly constructed over the last 6 months, with my own 2 hands and my own savings account. She saw her mother's cruel dismissal, and she affirmed it with a little tap of a heart icon. No second thought, no sense of shame. It felt like a stiletto heel wrapped in a velvet glove. They didn't want me there, but they were more than happy to keep the celebration I had purchased for them. I didn't cry. I didn't let out a single scream. I just felt a cold, quiet mechanism click into place deep inside my chest. I typed back 2 simple words: "Great choice." They thought they were simply editing me out of the picture. They had no idea they were actually severing their own lifeline. That was the exact moment I ceased to be their daughter and became their creditor. Before we get into the details, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment to let me know where in the world you're tuning in from. I sat on my kitchen stool, the phone's screen now dark. The message was gone from view, but the words were seared into my brain. Drama-free. To truly grasp why those 2 words were so devastating, you have to understand the house I was raised in. You have to know about Savannah, Georgia, and the pristine white house with the dark green shutters on Oak Lane. From the street, our family life looked like something out of a glossy magazine. We boasted the most immaculate lawn on the block. The hedges were meticulously shaped into perfect rectangles. The porch was swept spotless every single morning before 7 a.m. My mother, Catherine, saw to that. But inside, it was a stage, and we were all just performers in Catherine Pierce's lifelong production. Mom was striking. She had rich, dark hair that was always perfectly coiffed, and a radiant smile she could activate like a lamp. When company was over, she was the epitome of Southern charm. She'd laugh elegantly at their stories. She'd pour the sweet tea. She made every guest feel like the most important person in the world. But the second that front door clicked shut, the lamp was switched off. The smile vanished. She would turn to us, her eyes cold and analytical, scanning for imperfections. "Alexandra, why were you fidgeting?" she would demand. "Olivia, you looked utterly bored when Mr. Henderson was telling his story. Fix your expression." We tiptoed on eggshells. No, it was worse than eggshells. It was like navigating a minefield of invisible glass. My father, Robert, was a ghost in his own home. He was a tall man with broad shoulders, but he carried himself as if he were trying to disappear. He worked late hours. On weekends, he'd find endless projects in the garage or long games of golf to attend. He wasn't cruel. He was just absent. He saw what Mom did, the cutting remarks, the impossible expectations, and he simply turned his gaze away. He consistently chose his own tranquility over my well-being. And then there was Olivia. Olivia was 3 years my junior. She was Mom's carbon copy. She had the same dark hair, the same green eyes, the same subtle tilt of her head that made people instinctively want to protect her. She was the golden child. I was the one with lighter hair, the serious one, the one who favored Dad's side of the family. In my mother's eyes, Olivia was a trophy to be paraded. I was a problem to be solved. I remember one specific Tuesday when I was 12. It was a humid Georgia afternoon, the air thick and sticky. Mom was hosting her book club in 2 hours. The living room was immaculate. On the coffee table rested a porcelain music box, a delicate antique that had belonged to Mom's grandmother. It was Mom's most prized possession. Olivia and I were chasing each other down the hallway. We knew we weren't supposed to run, but we were kids. Olivia slipped on the Persian rug. She slid right into the living room, and her outstretched arm connected with the table. Crash! The sound was sickening. It was a sharp, final sound. We both froze. Porcelain fragments were scattered across the floor. The music box was obliterated. Olivia's eyes widened in terror. She began to tremble, her lower lip quivering. "Mom's going to kill me," she whispered. "Alex, she's going to kill me." I looked at my little sister, who seemed so small and fragile in that moment. I felt that familiar, heavy sensation in my gut, the weight I always seemed to carry, the weight of responsibility. "Stop crying," I told her. Then we heard the sharp click-clack of Mom's heels on the hardwood floors. She was coming. What was that sound? Mom's voice was like a whip. She strode into the room. She saw the shattered porcelain. Her face flushed red, then turned a ghostly pale. She looked at Olivia, who was visibly shaking. Then her eyes landed on me. I straightened my spine. "I did it," I said. The words came out automatically, a reflex. Mom didn't ask for an explanation. She didn't ask if it was an accident. She just pointed a single accusatory finger at me. "I knew it," she hissed. "You are so clumsy, Alexandra, so careless. Do you have any idea what that was worth?" "I'm sorry," I said. "Sorry doesn't fix an antique," she snapped back. "Go to your room. You will not be having dinner with us. I can't even look at you right now." I walked past Olivia. She didn't utter a word. She didn't try to defend me. She just stared at the floor, a wave of relief washing over her face. That was the established pattern. That was the unspoken rule of our home. Olivia made the mess. I cleaned it up. Olivia broke the rules. I served the time. As we grew older, the fundamental dynamic remained unchanged. It just became more expensive. In high school, Olivia was caught cheating on a history exam. The principal called our house. Mom became hysterical, not about the cheating itself, but about the family's reputation. "What will the neighbors say?" she shrieked. I drove to the school. I sat down with the principal. I told him I'd given her the answers, that I'd pressured her into it because she was struggling. I took the in-school suspension. It went on my permanent record, not hers. When I got home that afternoon, Dad was sitting in the kitchen reading the paper. He glanced at me over the top of it. "You shouldn't always cover for her, Alex," he said quietly. "Someone has to," I replied. "Mom would annihilate her." "You're a good sister," he said, before his eyes returned to the newsprint. He didn't offer to intervene. He didn't tell Mom the truth. He just allowed me to be the designated shield. I learned that being good meant being useful. It meant being quiet. It meant taking the blow so the real family could maintain its perfect facade. I believed that if I did it enough times, if I saved them enough times, they would one day love me for it. I imagined a day when Mom would look at me and say, "Thank you, Alex. We couldn't have done this without you." But that day never came. The more I gave, the more they took. They didn't interpret my sacrifices as love. They saw them as my function. By the time I left for college, I was burnt out. I was 18 going on 50. I moved 2 hours away to Atlanta for school, praying the distance would create some breathing room. It didn't. The phone calls were never, "How are your classes, honey?" They were, "Alex, Olivia needs help with her sociology essay. Can you look it over?" "Alex, Mom needs you to drive home this weekend to help set up for her garden party." "Alex, we're a little tight on cash for Olivia's sorority dues this semester. You have that savings from your summer job, don't you? And I always complied. I said yes because I was desperate. I was starving for a single crumb of their approval. I thought every check I wrote was a deposit on their affection. I didn't understand that I was trying to purchase a product they had no intention of ever selling to me. I was the resource, the fixer, the bank, the help. I wasn't a daughter, I was a utility, like the power or the water. You only notice the power when the lights go out. Otherwise, you just use it and don't give it a second thought. That was my role in the Pierce family. I kept the lights on so they could bask in the spotlight. After college, I became an event coordinator. It was a perfect fit. My entire job was to impose order on chaos. I managed budgets, I managed timelines, and I managed difficult personalities. I excelled at it because I'd been doing it for my family my entire life. I was 30 when I was promoted to a senior position. I was earning a great salary, really great. I bought a beautiful condo in Savannah, not too far from the family home. I drove a reliable car. I saved my money. Olivia, on the other hand, was 27 and still finding herself. She had a part-time job at a clothing boutique. She spent her income on clothes, weekend trips to Charleston with her friends, and high-end cosmetics. She lived in a trendy apartment that Mom and Dad subsidized. Then she met Mark. Mark Jennings was pleasant enough. He was handsome, hailed from a respectable family, and played golf with my dad. He was the ideal accessory for Olivia. When they got engaged, the true nightmare began. I remember the evening perfectly. We were at a high-end steakhouse downtown. Mom and Dad, Grandma Isabel, Olivia, Mark, and me. Olivia held up her hand, the diamond glittering under the dim restaurant lighting. "It's perfect, isn't it?" she squealed. "It's absolutely stunning, darling," Mom said, beaming. She flagged down a passing waiter. "My daughter just got engaged. Bring us a bottle of your best champagne." Dad was smiling from ear to ear. Even Grandma Isabel, who was usually reserved, looked genuinely happy. "So," Mom said, clasping her hands together, "we have so much to plan. The wedding must be absolutely perfect. Late spring, I'm thinking. Perhaps May, at the Magnolia Gardens." "I want a live jazz band," Olivia declared, "and gardenias, thousands of them." "Of course," Mom said. She then turned her head and looked straight at me. It was the look that said, "Here comes the bill." "Alexandra," Mom said, "you're so good with spreadsheets and organizing things. You'll help your sister, won't you? She gets so overwhelmed with all the little details." "I can help," I said, a note of caution in my voice, and Dad chimed in, clearing his throat. "Business has been a bit sluggish this quarter. The market's been unpredictable." He let the sentence hang there. He couldn't even bring himself to ask me directly. He was too cowardly for that. Mom took over. "We all need to pitch in, for the family. You're doing so well for yourself, Alexandra. It would mean the world to Olivia if you could just handle the initial deposits, just to get the ball rolling." I looked over at Olivia. She was sipping her champagne, not even making eye contact with me. She just assumed I would take care of it. "Okay," I said. "I'll handle the deposits." That was the initial lie. It was never just the deposits. Over the next 6 months, I became the wedding planner, the financier, and the emotional support hotline. I created a binder with color-coded tabs. I set up a shared digital calendar that only I ever updated. First on the list was the venue. We toured a historic estate on the river. It was absolutely breathtaking, and it cost $15,000 just to book the date. The coordinator, a woman named Sharon, sat us down. "So, who will be handling the retainer fee today?" Sharon asked politely. Mom suddenly became fascinated with the ceiling. Olivia was scrolling through her phone. I let out a quiet sigh and pulled out my credit card, the heavy metal one. "I will," I said. Sharon took the card. "Thank you, Ms. Pierce." As we were walking out, Olivia gave me a quick, one-armed hug. "Thanks, Alex. You're the best." That tiny morsel of affection fueled me for another month. Then it was time for the dress. We went to the most exclusive bridal salon in the city. Mom sat on a plush velvet sofa like a queen on her throne. I sat beside her holding Olivia's purse and a bottle of water. Olivia emerged in a gown that cost $8,000. It was a confection of lace and silk, and she looked beautiful. I'll admit it. She looked like a fairy tale princess. Mom burst into tears. "Oh, Olivia, that's the one." "I love it," Olivia said, twirling in front of the mirror. "Can I get a veil too?" "Get the veil," Mom commanded. The sales associate looked at me. She knew who was footing the bill. She walked over with the invoice. "The total with alterations and the veil comes to $9,200, she whispered to me. I felt a wave of nausea. That was a staggering amount of money. "Mom," I whispered, leaning toward her, "this is incredibly expensive. Maybe we should look at some of the other options." Mom's expression hardened instantly. "Don't be cheap, Alexandra. This is your sister's special day. Do you want her to look cheap?" "No, but just pay for it. You can afford it. You have that fancy job. What else are you spending your money on? You don't have a husband or children." The words hit me like a slap. "You don't have a husband." As if my single status meant my money was public domain. As if all my hard work was just a community fund for them to dip into because I didn't have a real family of my own. I paid for the dress. It didn't end there. I paid for the florist. $6,000 for white gardenias and cascading greenery. I paid for the band. $5,000 for a 7-piece jazz ensemble. I paid for the caterer. A 50% deposit on a surf and turf dinner for 200 guests. Every weekend was a flurry of appointments. I was negotiating contracts. I was tracking RSVPs. Olivia did nothing. She'd show up to taste the cake or pick out linen colors. If anything went slightly awry, if the champagne flutes weren't the right shape, or if the band couldn't play a specific song, she'd call me in a panic. "Fix it, Alex. You have to fix it." And I always did. I worked 10-hour days at my job and then came home to work another 4 hours on the wedding. My apartment became a chaotic hub of fabric swatches and vendor brochures. My bank account was draining at an alarming rate. I had spent over $50,000 of my own savings. And the worst part, the gratitude was disappearing. In the beginning, they would say thank you. By month 4, it was just expected. By month 5, they were complaining. One night, 3 weeks before the wedding, I was at my parents' house for dinner. We were having lasagna. "The caterer called," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "We need to give them the final head count and the final payment by this Friday." "Oh, don't bore us with logistics, Alexandra," Mom said, waving her fork dismissively. "We're trying to have a pleasant family dinner." "It's a $12,000 logistic, Mom," I said. "I need to know if you and Dad are planning to contribute to the final balance. I've covered everything else up to this point." Dad stared intently at his plate. "I told you, things are tight." "Alexandra," Mom said, her voice turning to ice. "Why must you always make everything about money? It's so vulgar. You're ruining the atmosphere." "I'm paying for the atmosphere," I snapped. It was the first time I'd raised my voice in years. The table fell silent. Olivia stared at me, her eyes wide. "God, Alex, you don't have to be such a martyr about it. Nobody asked you to do all this." I stared back at her, incredulous. Nobody asked me? Who paid for your dress, Olivia? Who paid for the venue? Who is paying for the food that you and your guests are going to eat? You offered, she yelled back. You always do this. You try to control everything with your money because you're jealous. Jealous? Yes, you're jealous that I'm getting married and you're all alone, so you try to buy your way into being important. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mom sighed dramatically. Olivia, don't be cruel. But Alexandra, you're being very aggressive. Just handle the bill, please. We'll pay you back eventually. We're family. We'll pay you back eventually. I knew it was a lie. They had never paid me back for anything. Not for the loan I co-signed for Olivia's semester in Europe, not for the repairs on Dad's truck, not for the beach house rental last summer. But I was cornered. The wedding was 3 weeks away. If I pulled out now, the entire thing would collapse. And I still clung to that desperate, foolish hope that if I could just get them across the finish line, if I could just deliver the perfect day, they would finally see me. So I nodded. I swallowed my rage, just as I had been swallowing it for 20 years. Okay, I said quietly. I'll handle it. I paid the final catering bill the next morning. I thought I had weathered the worst of it. I thought I had paid the full price of admission to my own family. I was wrong. The wedding week began. The rehearsal dinner was on Friday night, the wedding on Saturday. On Wednesday morning, the text arrived. I was sipping my coffee, reviewing the spreadsheet one last time to ensure the guest transportation schedule was flawless. Buzz. Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding. I read it again and again. It wasn't just a rejection. It was a complete erasure after $50,000, after hundreds of hours of my labor, after a lifetime of being the good daughter, the responsible one, the safety net. They didn't just want my money. They wanted my absence. They wanted the beautiful party I had bought for them, but they didn't want the jealous single sister standing in the wings, a living reminder of who had actually paid for it all. They wanted to pretend they had done it all themselves. They wanted the glory without acknowledging the cost. And Olivia, my little sister, the one I had protected from the shattered music box, the one I had saved from suspension, the one I had just dressed in thousands of dollars of silk and lace, she liked the message. She tapped the heart. That little heart emoji was what finally broke the spell. I sat there in my quiet apartment. The event coordinator in me took over. I stopped feeling hurt. I started analyzing the situation. Input, decades of loyalty, labor, and cash. Output, abuse, neglect, and final exclusion. The return on my investment was zero. In fact, it was negative. I looked at the stack of invoices on my desk. I looked at the vendor contracts open on my laptop. Every single one of them had a signature at the bottom, Alexandra Pierce. And every single one had a clause about cancellation. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I wasn't a sister. I was the client, and I was about to cancel the entire project. I stared at the phone in my hand. The screen had gone dark again, but the image of that little heart icon was burned onto my retinas. Olivia liked this. For several long minutes, I didn't move. I barely breathed. The air in my condo felt heavy and charged, the way it does right before a violent thunderstorm. I braced myself for the tears. I waited for that familiar, crushing weight of rejection to pin me to the sofa, just as it had when I was 12 and 16 and 27. But the tears never came. Instead, a strange and novel sensation washed over me. It started as a knot in my stomach and rose into my chest. It wasn't the heat of rage. It was cold. It was the sharp, refreshing chill of absolute clarity. I stood up and walked into my home office. My legs felt firm beneath me. My hands were steady. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The fan whirred to life. I opened the folder on my desktop, the one simply labeled Olivia's Wedding. Inside, there were neat subfolders: contracts, receipts, correspondence, budget. I clicked open the budget spreadsheet. It was a work of art, a masterpiece of organization. There were columns for estimated costs, actual costs, payment due dates, and payment status. I scrolled down the Paid By column: venue deposit, Alexandra Pierce; florist, Alexandra Pierce; gown, Alexandra Pierce; caterer, Alexandra Pierce; band, Alexandra Pierce. I glanced at the grand total at the bottom of the sheet. The number was staggering. It was a down payment on a house. It was a luxury car. It was 3 years of world travel. And I had given it away, no questions asked. I had given it because I thought I was purchasing love. I thought I was securing my seat at the family table. But as I looked at that text message one more time, the family wants a drama-free wedding, I finally understood what drama meant to them. To my mother and sister, drama wasn't arguments or raised voices. Drama was reality. Drama was my very existence. I was the living, breathing proof that their perfect lives were a sham. I was the one who knew they didn't have the money they pretended to have. I was the one who knew Olivia wasn't the responsible, put-together adult she portrayed herself to be. If I was at that wedding, standing in the background, I would be a silent, walking indictment of their lies. I would be a smudge on their perfect family portrait. They didn't want a drama-free wedding. They wanted a guilt-free one. They wanted to stand in that $15,000 garden, surrounded by $6,000 worth of gardenias, eating a $100 steak, and pretend they had provided it all. They wanted to graciously accept the compliments from their guests. "Oh, Catherine, what a magnificent party you've thrown," without having to glance over at me and know it was all a lie. They wanted to erase me but keep my money. I leaned back in my office chair. The realization was surgical, cleanly excising the hope I had been clinging to for decades. I thought about the past 6 months. I remembered the day at the florist. Olivia had thrown a tantrum because they didn't have the exact shade of antique gold ribbon she wanted for the bouquets. I had spent 20 minutes calming her down, and then another 30 minutes negotiating with the florist to special order the ribbon from New York. I paid the rush shipping fee myself. Olivia hadn't even thanked me. She just took a selfie with a rose. I thought about the catering tasting. Dad had made a joke about how we were really pulling out all the stops. He hadn't contributed a single cent. He had just eaten the mini crab cakes and nodded in approval. I thought about Mom telling me I was ruining the atmosphere by asking for help with the final payment. They saw me as a walking, talking wallet, a servant who should be grateful for the opportunity to serve them. And now that the heavy lifting was done, now that the bills were paid and the contracts were signed, they were discarding me. They thought it was a safe move. The wedding was only 3 days away. Everything was locked in. They assumed I would just retreat quietly, cry into my pillow, and allow them to have their day. Because that's what Alex always did. Alex always took the high road. Alex always fixed the mess. Alex always absorbed the pain. I looked at the text one last time. "Please don't come." "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. I wasn't going to their wedding. I wasn't going to cause a scene. I wasn't going to drive over there and scream at them. I was an event coordinator. When a client violates the terms of an agreement, you don't get emotional. You terminate the contract. And at that moment, I wasn't their daughter. I was the payer of record, and the client had just fired the project manager. I cracked my knuckles. The cold feeling in my chest hardened into an unbreakable resolve. I told myself this wasn't for revenge, and I meant it. Revenge is messy and emotional. This was justice. This was simply balancing the books. They wanted me gone? Fine. I would remove myself completely, and I would take everything that belonged to me with me. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over the message thread. I could see the little bubbles of their previous conversations. Mom sending a picture of the seating chart. Olivia sending a heart emoji. Then the cold, hard dismissal. I didn't type a long paragraph explaining how much they'd hurt me. I didn't ask them why. Asking why would give them power. It would give them an opportunity to explain, to gaslight, to twist it all around, and somehow make it my fault. I typed 8 words. Then you'll be free of my payments too. Send. I didn't wait for a reply. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and placed it face down on the desk. I turned back to my laptop. The screen was bright, waiting for my command. I opened the Contacts tab in my spreadsheet. It listed every single vendor, name, email, phone number, and contract number. I started at the top of the list, the venue. I opened my email client and hit Compose. To Sharon Miller at Magnolia Gardens. Subject, cancellation of contract MG 2024-521, Pierce/Jennings wedding. I typed with a speed and precision I didn't know I possessed. Dear Sharon, per our contract dated November 15th, I am the sole signatory and payer for the event scheduled for this Saturday, May 21st. Please consider this email as formal notification that I am canceling this booking, effective immediately. I understand that, as per the agreement, I will forfeit the non-refundable deposit. However, please refund any additional payments made in the last 30 days to the card on file, ending in 7821. Do not process any further charges. Under no circumstances are you to grant access to the venue for the Pierce or Jennings parties. Please confirm receipt of this cancellation at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Alexandra Pierce. I read it over once. It was professional. It was airtight. I hit send. 1 down. 16 to go. Next, the florist. 2. Orders at savannahpetals.com. Subject, cancel order 8843, Pierce wedding. Please cancel the delivery of all floral arrangements for the Pierce Jennings wedding this Saturday. I am the account holder. Do not deliver the flowers. If the arrangements have already been made, please donate them to a local nursing home or hospital. Under no circumstances are they to be released to Catherine Pierce or Olivia Pierce. Sincerely, Alexandra Pierce. Send. Next, the caterer. This one was the big one. I had just paid the final balance of $12,000 2 days ago. 2. Events at southerntablecatering.com. Subject, urgent cancellation, Pierce wedding. I am canceling the catering service for this Saturday. Do not prepare the food. Do not staff the event. Please process a refund for the refundable portion of the final balance immediately. Send. I worked my way down the list like an automaton. The jazz band, canceled. The photographer, canceled. The videographer, canceled. The wedding cake bakery, canceled. The vintage Rolls-Royce rental, canceled. The hair and makeup team, canceled. I even canceled the luxury portable restrooms we had rented for the garden area. 17 emails in total. It took me 45 minutes. With every single email I sent, I felt a weight lift. It was a physical sensation, like shrugging off a backpack filled with bricks that I had been carrying for 20 years. The guilt I had expected to feel? It wasn't there. Why should I feel guilty? I wasn't ruining their wedding. I was simply withdrawing my contribution. If they wanted a wedding, they were more than welcome to have one. They just had to pay for it themselves. They could pull out their own credit cards. They could call the vendors and sign new contracts. But I knew they wouldn't. I knew they couldn't. Dad didn't have the liquid assets. Mom didn't have the credit line. And Olivia? Olivia didn't have a clue. I was deleting the very infrastructure of their fantasy. After sending the last email to the rental company for the tables and chairs, I closed the spreadsheet. I sat in the profound silence of my office. It was done. My phone, still face down, began to buzz. Then it buzzed again and again, a long, continuous vibration against the wood of the desk. I didn't turn it over. I knew exactly what was happening. The cancellation emails were landing. Sharon from the venue was calling Mom. The florist was calling Olivia. The caterer was calling Dad. The drama-free bubble had just been violently popped. I pictured the scene unfolding at my parents' house. The initial confusion, the denial, then the rising panic. "What do you mean, canceled?" Mom would be screaming. "She can't do that." Olivia would be crying. "Fix it, Dad." But they couldn't fix it. Because for the first time in their lives, the person who fixed everything had officially quit. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a tall glass of water. My hands were perfectly steady. My heartbeat was slow and even. I walked to the window and looked out at the street below. The sun was shining. People were walking their dogs. The world was still turning. I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. I had burned the bridge back to my family. There would be no coming back from this. They would hate me forever. And for the very first time, I didn't care. A profound sense of peace washed over me. It was quiet, the constant, nagging noise in my head, the noise of, am I doing enough? Will they like this? How can I make them happy? Was gone. I had resigned. I sipped my water. The phone in the other room stopped buzzing for a moment, then started again, more frantically this time. I let it ring. I wasn't a resource anymore. I wasn't an ATM. I wasn't a doormat. I was Alexandra Pierce, and I was free. I didn't sleep that night. It was impossible. After the emails were sent, my phone had turned into a live grenade. It vibrated incessantly for 3 solid hours. Then, around 8 p.m., it finally fell silent. I figured they had either given up in exhaustion or were on their way to the wedding destination, hoping to fix the mess in person. I sat on my living room floor, enveloped by the silence I had created. I felt powerful, but I also felt profoundly alone. It's a strange thing to realize you're an orphan, even when your parents are still alive. I had severed the cord. I was adrift. At midnight, there was a knock at my door. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. I was sure it was my father. I imagined he had come to yell or to plead or to look at me with those sad, passive eyes that always hurt more than any anger. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. It wasn't Dad. It was Grandma Isabel. She was standing there in her tan raincoat, clutching her purse with both hands. Grandma Isabel was 82. She was my mother's mother, but she was nothing like Catherine. She was quiet, observant, and as sharp as a tack. She lived in the small guest cottage behind my parents' house. I opened the door. "Grandma," I whispered, "how did you get here?" "I took an Uber," she said simply. "May I come in, Alexandra?" I stepped back, and she walked into my condo, her eyes taking in the scene. She saw the laptop on the table. She saw the phone on Do Not Disturb. She didn't look angry. She just looked weary. She sat down on my sofa and patted the cushion beside her. "Sit down, child." I sat. I was trembling. "Are you angry with me?" I asked, my voice sounding small, like I was 6 years old again. Grandma Isabel sighed. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a printout of an email. "Sharon from the venue called me," she said. "She remembers I paid the deposit for the rehearsal dinner last year. She wanted to know if I was canceling my part, too." I looked down at my hands. I'm sorry, Grandma. I couldn't take it anymore. I know, she said softly. She reached out and took my hand. Her skin was thin and cool, like parchment. I'm not here to scold you, Alexandra. I'm here because I am proud of you. I looked up, stunned. Proud? Yes, she said, her voice firm. I watched them do this to you for 30 years. I watched Catherine treat you like hired help. I watched Olivia take the credit for your efforts. I wanted to speak up so many times, but I was afraid. I live in their house. I depend on them. She tightened her grip on my hand. But they've been doing it to me too, Alexandra. My eyes widened. What do you mean? My savings, she whispered. Your grandfather left me with a comfortable sum. I gave Catherine access to the account to help with my groceries and prescriptions. But lately, the numbers haven't been adding up. Her expression hardened with a quiet, simmering rage. I checked the bank statements today. After all the chaos began, there are withdrawals, large ones. Wedding expenses, Catherine called them. She told me she was just borrowing it. She promised she'd put it back. Oh my God, I said. She was stealing from you to pay for the things I wouldn't cover? Yes, Grandma said. They are bleeding us both dry, Alexandra. They use your money to appear wealthy, and they use my money to stay afloat. She looked me directly in the eye. You do not have to carry them anymore, and neither do I. Tears pricked my eyes. For the first time all day, I cried. Not for the wedding, but for the validation. I wasn't crazy. Someone else saw it. Someone else had felt it too. I canceled everything, Grandma. I sobbed. It's all gone. Good, she said. Let it burn. They built a life on a foundation of lies. It's time they lived in the truth. She stood up, looking taller than I'd ever seen her. The frailty was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. They're in Asheville now, she said. They flew up this evening, hoping to salvage the contracts in person tomorrow morning. They think if they yell loud enough, the vendors will get scared and reinstate everything. It won't work, I said. I'm the contract holder. I'm the only one who can authorize it. Exactly, she said. But they will try. And when they fail, they will come for us. They will come for you to fix it, and they will come to me for the money to pay for it. She walked to the door. Get your coat, Alexandra. Pack a bag. Where are we going? We're going to meet them, she said. I called a lawyer, a man named Arthur Vance. He was your grandfather's attorney years ago. He's meeting us in Asheville tomorrow morning. In Asheville? Why? Because, Grandma said, opening the door and letting the cool night air rush in. When they walk out of that airport, defeated, we will be there. We are not going to hide, Alexandra. We are going to end this, face to face. She paused, a fierce glint in her eye. They wanted a drama-free wedding? Fine. We'll give them a reality-full divorce from our bank accounts. The next morning, the air in the Asheville Regional Airport was chilly and smelled of floor polish and stale coffee. I stood near the baggage claim exit, wearing my best power suit, a sharp navy blazer and perfectly tailored trousers. My heels clicked decisively on the polished tile. I hadn't dressed like a daughter meeting her family. I had dressed like a CEO orchestrating a hostile takeover. Grandma Isabel sat on a bench beside me, looking regal in her Sunday best, her hands folded over her cane. Standing slightly in front of us was Arthur Vance. Arthur was a terrifying man. He was in his 60s, bald, and wore a suit that probably cost more than my car. He didn't smile. He held a leather briefcase as if it contained nuclear launch codes. He was the kind of lawyer you hired when you wanted to salt the earth. We checked the arrivals board. Flight from Savannah. Landed. My stomach clenched. This was it. Steady, Arthur said softly, his eyes fixed on the sliding glass doors. Let them speak first. Do not apologize. Do not explain. I won't, I said. The doors slid open and passengers began to stream out. Then I saw them. Mom walked out first, looking haggard. Her perfect hair was slightly disheveled, her makeup smudged. But she was walking fast, chin held high, trying to project that unshakable Pierce confidence. Dad trailed behind her, dragging 2 large suitcases. He looked gray and defeated, like a man walking to his own execution. And then came Olivia. She was in sweatpants and sunglasses, openly sobbing. Not the cute, single-tear kind of crying she did for sympathy, but ugly, red-faced, gasping sobs. Mark, her fiancé, trailed behind her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on the planet. Mom scanned the terminal, looking for a taxi sign. Then her eyes locked onto me. She stopped dead in her tracks. Dad nearly bumped into her. "Alexandra," she said, her voice carrying across the terminal. Confusion washed over her face, quickly replaced by a flash of desperate hope. She thought I was there to save the day. She thought I'd flown up to surprise them, to pay off the vendors, to make the nightmare go away. She marched toward me. "Thank God," she said, breathless. "Alexandra, you have no idea what a mess this has been. The venue won't let us on the property. The florist hung up on me. You need to call them, right now. Give them your card details again. Tell them it was all a big mistake." She reached out to grab my arm. I took a deliberate step back. "No," I said. Mom froze, her hand hovering in the air. "Excuse me? I'm not calling anyone," I said, my voice as steady as a rock. "I canceled the contracts, Mom. I told you I would. You wanted me gone? I'm gone. And my money is gone with me." Olivia ripped off her sunglasses. Her eyes were swollen and red. "You ruined my wedding!" she shrieked, causing nearby travelers to turn and stare. "You did this on purpose! You're a monster! I hate you!" "We already have a ride," Mom snapped, trying to regain control. Her eyes fell on Arthur and Grandma. "Mother, what are you doing here? And who is this man?" "We're not here to pick you up," I replied. Arthur stepped forward, smoothly positioning himself between me and my mother. He was a solid wall of expensive wool and legal authority. "Mrs. Pierce," Arthur said, his voice deep and calm, like a distant storm. "My name is Arthur Vance. I represent Ms. Alexandra Pierce and Mrs. Isabel Hayes." Mom blinked. "Represent? What are you talking about? This is a family matter." "Not anymore," Arthur stated. "It is now a legal matter concerning the misappropriation of funds, fraud, and financial elder abuse." The color drained from my mother's face. It was instantaneous, as if someone had pulled a plug. She went from furious red to sheet white. "Fraud?" Dad whispered, dropping a suitcase handle with a loud clatter. "Yes," Arthur said. He lifted his briefcase and clicked open the latches. The sound was sharp and loud in the sudden quiet of our little group. He pulled out a thick stack of papers. "We have documentation," he continued. "Miss Pierce has provided proof of every payment she made under the false impression that she was a contributor, not the sole financier. And Mrs. Hayes?" He gestured to Grandma. Grandma Isabel stood up, leaning on her cane, but looking anything but frail. "You stole from me, Catherine," she said, her voice sad but clear. Mom gasped. "I did not. I borrowed." "You took $30,000 from my retirement account in the last 4 months," Grandma cut her off. "You labeled the medical expenses in the ledger, but Arthur checked the dates. They matched the deposits for Olivia's honeymoon and the rental of that vintage car." Olivia looked at Mom, her face a mask of confusion. "Mom, you told me Dad paid for the honeymoon." Dad looked at Mom aghast. "Diane, You told me your mother had offered to pay for it. The lies were colliding and imploding right there in the middle of the Asheville airport. I was going to put it back, Mom stammered, her confidence shattering. We just had a cash flow problem. Robert's bonus didn't come through. I was fixing it. I always fix it. No, I said, stepping out from behind Arthur's protective presence. I always fix it, and I'm done. Mom looked at me, her eyes filled with desperation. She was finally realizing the credit card wasn't coming back out. She was realizing the good daughter was well and truly gone. Alexandra, please, she whispered. People are staring. This is embarrassing. Let's just go to the hotel and discuss this. We're family. Does family send texts telling you not to come to a wedding? I asked. Does family steal from their 82-year-old mother? Arthur handed one manila envelope to Mom and another to Dad. These are cease and desist orders regarding access to Mrs. Hayes' accounts, Arthur said, and a formal demand for repayment of all unauthorized withdrawals. If the funds are not returned within 30 days, we will be filing criminal charges for theft and elder abuse. Criminal charges? Dad choked out. You can't do that, Olivia wailed. I'm getting married. Not this weekend, you're not, I said flatly. I looked at my sister. For the first time, I didn't see the golden child. I saw a spoiled, helpless woman who had never been told no in her entire life. The wedding is off, Olivia. The vendors have already refunded my money. The date has been released. It's over. Olivia slumped against Mark. Mark's eyes darted from the envelope in my dad's hand to the furious face of the lawyer. And then he took a small but distinct step away from Olivia. I saw it. The cracks were appearing everywhere. You're cruel, Mom hissed at me, tears of rage now streaming down her face, ruining her foundation. How could you be so cruel to your own sister? I learned from the best, I said. I turned to my grandmother. Are you ready to go, Grandma? I have a rental car waiting. I'm ready, she said. She didn't even glance at Catherine. She took my arm. We turned our backs on them. Behind us, I heard Olivia's ragged sobs. I heard Mom hissing at Dad to do something. I heard the chaotic, messy sound of a family falling apart because the one person holding it all together had finally let go. We walked through the automatic doors and into the crisp mountain air. I took a deep breath. It was the cleanest air I had ever tasted. The weeks that followed were a blur of logistics, but a quiet blur. The wedding, of course, did not happen. From what I pieced together through the grapevine, cautious texts from mutual friends, it was an unmitigated disaster. Mom tried to throw a small dinner for the family who had already flown into town, but the rumors had already spread like wildfire. Mark's parents backed out of everything when they found out the venue was canceled. Apparently, Mark and Olivia broke up 2 weeks later. He told a friend he couldn't marry into that much liability. I didn't feel happy about it. I just felt nothing. It was like reading a news story about people I used to know. I focused my energy on cleaning up my own life. Most of the vendors were surprisingly understanding. Once Arthur Vance sent a few letters explaining the situation, I got about 70% of my deposits back. It was still a financial loss, but it was a price I was more than willing to pay for my own freedom. I helped Grandma Isabel move into her new apartment. It was a lovely place in a senior living community just outside Asheville, with a balcony that overlooked the Blue Ridge Mountains. We started spending our afternoons there. One Saturday, about a month after the airport showdown, I was sitting on her balcony with her. We were repotting some herbs, and the air smelled of basil and damp earth. My phone was on the small table between us, silent. I had blocked my mother, my father, and Olivia. The silence was no longer heavy and oppressive. It was spacious. It felt like a room with all the windows thrown open. Grandma patted the soil around a rosemary plant, wiping her hands on her apron. "You look different," she said, looking at me. "Different how?" I asked. "Your shoulders," she said. "They aren't up around your ears anymore. You used to carry yourself like you were always waiting for a blow to land. Now, you just look like you." I smiled. She was right. I had started sleeping through the night. The chronic tension headaches I'd had for years had simply vanished. I was focusing on my job, actually enjoying my projects again. I had even started volunteering at a local advocacy center for elder protection, helping people like my grandmother navigate the complexities of financial abuse. It was work that felt meaningful. It was a life I was building on truth, not on obligation. "I feel different," I admitted. "I feel lighter. But sometimes I feel guilty. Is that wrong? I wonder if I was too harsh." Grandma shook her head. She picked up her teacup. "Alexandra, look at this plant," she said, pointing to the rosemary. "If you don't prune the dead branches, the entire plant eventually dies. You didn't kill the family. You just pruned away the rot so that you could finally survive." She looked out at the vast, blue-hued mountains. "Love doesn't ask you to make yourself disappear," she told me. "Real love doesn't ask you to set yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm." I nodded, letting her words sink deep into my bones. She was right. For so long, I had thought love was a transaction. I believed that if I paid enough, worked enough, and suffered enough, I would eventually earn it. But real love, the kind I had with my grandmother, the kind I was slowly learning to have for myself, it didn't have a price tag. It didn't require contracts or spreadsheets. It just required you to be present. I picked up the small watering can and gave the herbs a drink. The water soaked into the dark soil, nourishing the roots. Walking away hadn't destroyed my family. They had destroyed themselves long before I ever sent that text. Walking away had simply freed the only part of it that was still real and true. It had freed us. I took a sip of my tea, listening to the wind rustle through the trees, and for the first time in 30 years, I didn't check my phone. I just watched the sunset.